If you want to learn next internationalization and how to do something like this, where you have your English text and then you just change the prefix inside of the URL to, for example, DE for German, and it directly switches to the German translation, then look at what I show you in the next minutes. So what is internationalization actually? So what does that mean? Simply said, it's just the possibility to change the language in your app. Maybe on purpose, so you have something like a switcher, a select switcher, where you can choose which language of the page you want to see, or it's just delivered automatically. So the German user sees the German web page, the English user sees the English web page. You get the point, I guess. So it's also called i18n. If you see that, that's related to internationalization also. And yeah, but why do we want to use internationalization? It's simply because we don't want to have a web app for every country we're supporting. So let's say we have our web application, our, I don't know, new enterprise application in Germany, in England, in France, in Spain, but we don't want to have a web app for every country, because this is a hell of stuff you need to do for that, and it's more cost effective, it's just more work, and you don't want that. You just want that one project where all languages are supported. And yeah, to do that, we look at next internationalization, or next-intl. And to implement this in our application, I've set it up a very simple Next.js application. I just got rid of some boilerplate code and just have this simple page here. This is a home page. I get a little bit into the zoom here. This is a home page. This is wow, okay. This is the page content. Now my pronunciation works. So just a very simple site, and we are going to implement this internationalization. It's a hard word. We're going to implement that now by just saying npm i next-intl, so like that. And then we can create a folder called messages, and in this folder we save .json files, and we save one .json file for every language that we want to support. So I have an en.json, and let's say we also want to support German, so this would be de.json, France would be fr.json, or Spain would be, I think, es.json. Yeah, you get the point. Just for every language, one JSON format file. And then we just create a simple object inside of here. Let's call this just homepage, for example. And what is he telling me? Yes, that looks actually pretty good, I would say. So we have a title and we have content here. The title is welcome to the homepage, and the content is, this is the homepage content. So usually you do it like that for every page you have in your application, you have something like a key on this layer here. So for your about page, what is it giving me? The contact page. So for every page in your application, you have a translation. So inside of the homepage, you have then the elements, like, for example, you have a p tag, and inside of the p tag, there is this text. So we have a title, welcome to the homepage, for example. So what we are doing is we are copying this to the other .json files. And what we never change is these keys here. They should stay always the same, and I would suggest to go for English for that, or if you just build with a, I don't know, Spanish team, then you can leave them in Spanish, but they need to be the same. That's very important. And this is the thing you translate now. So Copilot is doing a great job here in translating this. So we have the title Willkommen auf der Startseite, and the content, this is der Inhalt der Startseite. And in en.json we have welcome to the homepage, and this is the homepage content. So this is the text that is standing here on the right side in a few minutes if we get everything done. So that was the first step. Get your JSON files. This is where all the translation happens. So now we need to set up the whole thing. And for that, we need to jump inside of the next-config.mjs, because we need to import something here. So we import create next-intl plugin from next-intl plugin. And then we say, no, not quite exactly correct. Let's just say const with next-intl, and we're calling this create next-intl plugin as a function call. So like this, and then we are just wrapping our config inside this plugin, And that's everything you need to do inside of the next config. The next station where we need to go is into a file called i18n.ts. This is our config file for the internationalization. And here we just paste some code. Everything you see here, all the code is inside of the GitHub repo, which is on my repository at GitHub. So you have this locales array here, and this needs to be consistent with your messages file. So if you have support for two languages, de.json and en.json, then you have en and de here. If you have fr, for example, then you need to add fr like this here. And then the second thing you need to be aware of is this path. My messages folder is on the same level as this i18n.ts folder, so I don't need these 2 points here, and I'm directly inside, or I go directly into the messages folder. So we have i18n, the config here, set it up. We can export that actually. This is useful for switching the language later. So just be aware that this is exported here. The next thing we need is a middleware.ts. And here we also just copy and paste something over. And here the same thing, be aware of this array, it needs to be consistent. Here you can also specify a default locale. This is English now, and I would suggest stay with English. It makes the whole thing easier for everybody to understand. And then we also have this config here. It's basically just a middleware, Next.js middleware. So this is the matcher. So if any path is hitting this regular expression, then this middleware is called, and this middleware is needed to secure that your routing is working correctly and that you're always routing to the internationalized sites. Yes, so the last thing we need to change is inside the layout TSX. We need to wrap our whole application with next-intl client provider like that. So we import that at the top and wrapping our application, and this is needing a prop called messages. So how do we get our messages? We can fetch them inside of here, but for that we need to import, I think it is import get messages, yes, correctly. So we import get messages, and then we need to make this component an async component. So we are allowed to fetch here now our messages by saying await get messages like this, and that's all. And now we can pass this as props, and the whole application now has access to our messages specified here in the messages folder and the JSON files. So that is the whole magic of it. But now we need to wrap our whole application inside of a new folder called those square brackets and then locale. So the layout TSX, the page.tsx, and the globals, I think you need also to put inside of here, needs to be inside. So this is for me a little downside. It makes everything a little bit more messy, but I think it's okay. It's just needed for the routing because the path name needs to be changed every time. Okay, so now we are actually already finished. We just need to use it now. So let's get right into our into a page.tsx. This is the thing you can see on the right side here, and let's just use translation now. It's actually very simple. Once you set it up, you just call, or you create a constant, call that t. I think this is the most common way to do it. You can also call it translation, really doesn't care. And we say use translations from next-intl. We import that as the top, and we are needing to provide a key for this page now. So the key is exactly this thing here on this level. So homepage, for example, now. So we say homepage, and now t has all the things inside of the homepage object, so title and content. So what we can do then is just go inside of here. This is a homepage, and say, okay, t, call it as a function, give it a string, and give it the string of the child, for example, title. And now we have this thing internationalized, but I think, no, it's not running at the moment. So let me do it for that thing too here. So t, and what is that? I think content. Yes, correct. So content. And now let's restart this application shortly. So let's get here, and here we go with the German version. And you can see there's a little prefix added here now, /de, and I can change that to /en, for example, and now I get the English version. It's that simple, it's that magically, and now you just have translations in your application or internationalization in your application. But this is problematic if I want to say this is an async component. So let's say I don't know, I have here any code that is making a request to the server. So server request async stuff, I don't know. Now this is not working anymore. I get an error very simply, which is telling me, okay, I don't want to analyze this error because it's a mess. So what we need to do is we can't use translations here because everything is async. So we need to use something called, I think, get translations, but this is at a different spot. So we say import get translations, yes, from next-intl server. And this is the thing we need to call here now, but we need to await that thing. And now everything should work the same as before. So we can switch here at the top to DE and we see the German version. So very simple, but you need to be aware of that. So if you use async, you need to await it and use get translations. But if you use just normal server components without fetching data, then you need use translations without any await. And the third thing you can do is, or you want to have, is maybe you have client side. So you have some interaction stuff where you need use client at the top. And if you use client at the top, things can theoretically get a little bit messy. So he's crying now because it shouldn't be async. So if we use get translations here now, it's not working because we're not awaiting it. If we use translations now, this maybe can work. Let's test it out shortly. I will refresh, and is it working? It is working, but things can get very complex with client side because sometimes this is not working. And what you need to do then is pass it from the parent component into the child component. So let's say the parent component is a server component, because any parent component, if you go up into the tree, you find a server component. And then you need to pass the translations down. I think that's the useful way. So let's say this is a normal server component and we get our translations here. And now we are calling, I don't know, some component. This doesn't exist now, but let's say we're calling some component. Then we would give it as a prop the translations. So for example, T here now, or you unpack already all translations inside of there. And then you have the translations inside of the client component if you face any errors. If you don't, then let's go for this approach. But yeah, that's just something you need to be aware of. So now we have seen how to use it in server components, in async server components, and in client components. Another thing that is really very useful is if you using the link component, and let's just link to any site here, to an about page. This doesn't exist, but that doesn't matter. So if I click it here, I'm getting to /about. And this is actually a problem because we don't have the prefix here, because the thing we need is /de/about, but this is not working. So what we need to do for this to work is actually create a file called navigation.ts. And inside of this file navigation.ts, we just pasting this code. He's crying now about the locals thing. That's why we exported it actually. So we can get rid of this and export it from i18n. So we get our locals now. And this is actually just exporting all the typical Next.js routing stuff. So link, redirect, use partner, use router, and is adding the prefix before it. So you don't have this problem. So if we're using now not the link from next link, and instead use the link from add navigation, so our own file, and go then on the about page, you see it's en/about and not /about just. So we're not facing this navigation or routing errors anymore. So that's yeah, that's the way how to fix that actually. So maybe you also want to build a language switcher now inside of your application. Let's say you have settings or something like that, and there should be a language switcher. So maybe like simple drop down where you can switch the language. Basically, that's not very hard to do. I will link you inside of the description code where you can see how to do it. But actually, there's not a function for that actually. The easy thing you would just do is you build your select thing and then you select the language. So you say German, English, France, I don't know. And all you do is reading the path name and just changing this prefix to, for example, DE, and that's all. So it's not a big magic. You just change the path name and it's like a rerouting, but yeah, because the whole site needs to be refreshed when the language is switching, because I guess your language is yeah, you can see your language a lot of parts of your website. So that's the way how to build a language switcher. It's not very complex. I will link you to the code in the description. I think it's 40-50 lines maybe of code, but simple to understand. But there's a lot more to cover than this what I showed you in this tutorial. But I think this is the fundamentals and this is everything you need for the most purpose. And yeah, there are also extensions out there, because one thing you could say, which is not very nice, is that I don't know what is the translation of that. And I think for that purpose I have something installed but not set it up now. I'm not sure how this is. Yeah, it is i18n. So this is a plugin in VS Code which can use to see, I don't know, are they showing it here? Yes, they're showing it. So here you can see you have this T, and then it's this is Vue.js code, but it's the same here. So this part of code gets replaced with the actual translation. So in this case it would be give me the en.js, and it would be welcome to the homepage, which is written down here then. So then you can see the real code, and if you hover it you get back this code to work on it or change it. So yeah, that's basically how to do that. Yeah, I hope you liked this video. It was just a quick dive into Next Internationalization. You can do very much a lot with it. It's just the go-to standard, I think, today, because you don't want to build web applications for every language. That's a whole mess of work to do. And yeah, the trend is that we're just doing one-person projects more and more. So one person would love you if you just say it's possible that way. So that's the reason I showed that to you. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.